Hello, hello, hello. This is Rob from Rob's Rants. A lot of stuff has been happening during the last couple of weeks after the tragic death of our brother Kobe Bryant. And of course, you have the white supremacist liberal trolls who have come out the woodworks to attack him. I made a video about Ari Shafir as well as Avon Racist Wood, or Avon Rachel Wood, for those of you who don't know who I'm talking about, and two individuals who could never be on the level as Kobe Bryant. But of course, it wouldn't be complete without the white supremacist flunkies coming out to attack him. And who else better than noted mammy, Negro bedwench, Gayle King, who's going out of her way time and time again to attack Kobe Bryant. And she doesn't stop. But of course, that's not what I want to talk about today. Today, what I want to talk about is the street dudes versus the academic Negroes. The street dudes versus the academic Negroes. And the reason why I'm titling this particular video this is because of the fact that the street dudes have been at odds with these academic Negroes for a very long time here in black society in America. Not to say there's anything wrong with the academics, because some of my heroes, of course, were academics. Most notably, Dr. John Henry Clark, Chancellor Williams, Ivan Van Sertima, Jacques Anta Diop, and just to name a few. And of course, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, just to name a few. But one of the things about those particular black academics is that they use their scholarship to speak up for black people. They use their scholarship to fight white supremacy, not to try to keep us in the hole that we're in as black folks here in American society. And that's the reason why I respected them. But if we can be real, most black academics don't use their scholarship to advance the progression of black people. And in fact, they use their scholarship to undermine us. And that brings me to no other than Eric Michael Dyson. Eric Michael Dyson, just like with Gayle King, who was actually obliterated on black social media, rightfully so, for all the for the stuff that she said about Kobe Bryant, trying to imply that he was a sexual predator. And I'm obviously glad to actually see that, because what's happening now in black society is that most black people are seeing the hypocrisy of the double standard that the media has towards us when it comes to us versus everyone else. And they see the bootlicks that are participating in this lampoon against black society and black men in particular. Because Gayle King had the opportunity, for instance, to interview people of the likes of Paul Walker when he passed away. Which most people don't realize, that Paul Walker married, was engaged to a 16-year-old girl when he was in his 30s. And when he tragically died in that car crash, there was only one news outlet that actually brought it up. And the rest of them never talked about it or buried it. And they buried it. Or we can talk about Rob Loeb, who made a sex tape with a 16-year-old girl when he was in his 20s. Or we can even most recently talk about Spartacus himself, Kirk Douglas. Look at that chin. Spartacus himself, Kirk Douglas, who was supposedly accused of raping actress Natalie Wood when she was 16 years old. These are all facts, people. These are all facts. And every single time that a black person, a black man, has been accused of any kind of sexual crime, there's Gayle King. Whether it's Bill Cosby, whether it's R. Kelly, and most recently Kobe Bryant, even in death. But this time, because of the fact that with unlike R. Kelly and Bill Cosby, Kobe was still in good standing with the black community. And people loved him. So now you have a lot of black folks who are looking at Gail and her and what she's doing and how she has this pattern of constantly attacking black men over and over and over and over again. And now you have black celebrities who are standing up. Street dudes like Snoop Dogg and 50 Cent who are standing up and calling her out for what she's doing. And this goes back to what the initial title of my piece is about. The street dudes versus the academics. If you understand history, it was always the street dudes who were the ones that started a rebellion within the community whenever cops got out of pocket and they practiced white supremacy on law-abiding citizens. When Latasha Harlan got shot in the head by a Korean woman, and then later on, when Rodney King was beat within an inch of his life here in Los Angeles, it was the street dudes in South Los Angeles who decided to light the city up. And it burned down all of these shops owned by these foreigners, particularly Koreans, who have been disrespecting black people for years within the community. Because one of the biggest misconceptions about the LA riots is that black people basically came in and burned down and destroyed their own community, their own businesses, their own shops, their own houses, which is not entirely true. The majority of the businesses that were targeted were businesses that were not owned by us. And these were particularly individuals, and they were owned particularly by individuals that went out of their way to abuse and disrespect black people, selling us items that were triple the price that it would be if you went into a regular grocery store, following you around everywhere you go. You shop over you shop. You get out to buy. Like how you saw Menace to Society. And many times, like what happened with Latasha Harlan, a lot of these people would put out a gun on you and try to kill you. So those are most of the places that were burnt down. And many of the people that led the charge in that particular riot were the street dudes, the gangbangers. It wasn't the academics. The same thing was said for the 64 riots within Watts. The same thing in Baltimore, the same thing in Ferguson. It's always been the street dudes who have been at the forefront of invoking justice when it needed to be served in the community. From race soldiers coming in and brutalizing and murdering us. You look at the Black Panther Party. Most of the prominent members of the Black Panther Party were street dudes. Here in Los Angeles, people like Bungie Carter, gang member. Geronimo Pratt, gang member. You also had Eldridge Cleaver, who had been to prison. And then, of course, you had Fred Hampton, who actually was a gang leader in Chicago. So there's always been a connection between black revolutionaries and the guys on the block. I don't consider myself to be a guy on the block. I'm not a street dude. I'm not a guy on the block. I got street in me, but I'm not a guy on the block. But I've always respected guys on the block, and I can always converse with guys on the block because I have people in my family and guys I grew up with who lived that life. Which brings me to Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg made a video where he actually let Gayle King know in so many words how he didn't appreciate what she was doing to Kobe Bryant and to black men and how she's participating in white supremacy. And you have some folks out there, of course, Shea Butter Twitter, who had a problem with some of the words that he used. Now, let's be clear. I'm not a person who sits up and cosigns just disrespecting black women, but I don't have any sympathy for black collaborators of white supremacy. And Gayle King has proven herself to be a very flagrant, very bold collaborator of white supremacy. She's done it over and over and over and over and over again. So in this case, I give Snoop Dogg a pass in terms of what he said about her. She deserves it. And he recognizes that in order for us as black folks, for us to truly be free, we have to eliminate ourselves of individuals like this. So listen to what he has to say.
Out of pocket for that shit. Way out of pocket. What do you gain from that? I swear to God, we the worst. We the fucking worst. We expect more from you, Gail. Don't you hang out with Oprah? Why y'all attacking us? We your people. You ain't coming after fucking Harvey Weinstein asking them dumb-ass questions. I get sick of y'all. I want to call you one. Is it okay if I call him one? Funky dog-head bitch. How dare you try to tarnish my motherfucking homeboy's reputation, punk motherfucker. Respect the family and back off, bitch, before we come get you.
Well, Snoop was not lost for words in terms of how he felt about Gayle King. And all I have to say is that it was delicious. She brought it on herself. Now, moving along from him, we got some handkerchief hand Negro by the name, who I mentioned earlier, Eric Michael Dyson. Now, this is a guy that has been running interference for white supremacy for a very, very long time. If you guys remember, there was an incident with Eric Michael Dyson where he actually ran interference for none other than Bill the Bigot Maher, who always got a bunch of black jokes, and he got caught using the racial epithet nigger on his program. And when he used it, it was no more than Eric Michael Dyson who came out the woodwork to sit up and run interference for him, which is what he does. He does this every single time. But when you have a black man like Snoop Dogg who sits up and speaks up against white supremacy, the first thing he does is he sides with the bootleg. That lets you know what side Eric Michael Dyson is really, really on. He's not on our side. He's on their side. I want to play a clip to show you exactly what Eric Michael Dyson had to say in regards to this whole ordeal. Listen. I'm going to play some of it. I can't play all of it. It's kind of long.
My brothers and sisters, the response to Gayle King's interview with Lisa Leslie contains many elements that I think are deeply and profoundly problematic. To begin with, I loved Kobe Bryant and mourn him to this day. I knew him well. We had a tremendous relationship.
Let me fast forward a little bit.
And so let me bring in people who are critical of some of the moments in American dirt and the impetus of a white woman to write about indigenous experiences and Latinx experiences in a way that is not profound and complicated and nuanced, and therefore is willing to say, let me change my mind and engage those people as well. So you can have legitimate critiques of Oprah Winfrey and Gayle King. You can legitimately ask them, what about their viewpoints about Harvey Weinstein and Al Franken and Charlie Rose versus a Kobe Bryant, right? That's a legitimate critique. What is not legitimate is to, in a vicious sense, assault them. This cancel culture has to be ended, has to itself be canceled. All the good that Oprah Winfrey has done, I have seen her in the home of Susan Taylor take pictures for 2 hours straight when Susan wanted to cut it off after an hour, thinking that Oprah would be inundated and unfairly treated. And
as usually, this jackass always sounds like he just swallowed a thesaurus, but I'll go ahead and give you a synopsis of what he talked about. You can actually watch the entire video and judge for yourself. I'll put it in the link. But as usual, he's running interference for these bootlegs, is what he does. There's no critique in what he does. He doesn't talk about the fact that every single time Gayle King puts interview someone, it's always a black man, usually famous, and she's bringing up events that happened in their life 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Yet, you got, as he said before, Charlie Rose, you got Harvey Weinstein, you got Al Franken.